Top financial reporter Isaac Shui had been played for a fool. He looked down at her and said, "Shui, I'm so sorry. Her family, well, they're not ordinary. Her youngest uncle drives a Rolls-Royce, a custom one. Even the license plate is unique. Let's break up. Let's just be friends." So he'd been cheating. Shui fought back tears, slapping him hard across the face. "Bastard, who wants to be friends with you? I want to be your ancestor." "Oh, she's not the 13 zodiac sign, is she? And her family's loaded. With an uncle who drives a Rolls-Royce with a special license plate? I'll make that couple call me Annie with respect. Just you wait until the day I dump your entire family." She leaned toward the car window. "Hey, my phone's dead. Could you give me a lift?" Tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture, she looked at the distinguished man and sighed. He lowered his gaze, his voice cold. "My car doesn't carry women with boyfriends." A smile played on her lips. Oh, that was days ago. She was angling for interview, her mind screaming Sione, her heart whispering, "I want to be a kept woman too." Many days ago, she repeated. "I waited so long for this interview and finally," Shui thought, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. The staff member looked at her with concern. "Miss, have you lost your memory?" She simply offered a gentle smile. "Sir, is it a good time now?" At the Financial Weekly office, everyone was a blur of activity. Suddenly, Shui's phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello, is this Zhang Shui, reporter for Financial Weekly?" The voice inquired. "Yes, speaking," she replied. "My name is Chun Sheng, assistant to the CEO of Mingyu Bank. A month ago, your magazine scheduled an interview with CEO Xiang, but due to personal reasons, it had to be postponed for a week." Shui's internal monologue screamed. "So what? Timeliness is crucial for an interview. This delay is unacceptable." But she bit back her frustration. "I'm sorry, but a week is too late. Could you please ask your CEO to reschedule? How about tonight? A phone interview would work 2-3 hours. No, 2 hours would be sufficient." The assistant's voice was firm. "CEO, she has a rather important engagement tonight. However, I can arrange a spot for you there. I can't guarantee the CEO will have time. I'm afraid you might come back empty-handed. Just give me the address, please." "I'll do my best," Shui responded, excitement thrumming beneath her forced composure. As soon as the call ended, she slumped back in her chair, taking deep breaths. Who is Xiang? She thought. At just 27, he took over the failing Mingyu Bank, a subsidiary of his family's conglomerate, and against all odds and pessimistic predictions, single-handedly turned it around. From that moment on, his reputation soared, becoming a focal point of the entire financial world. The name Xiang has become synonymous with opportunity, a golden ticket. An interview with him would bring just as much attention to the reporter. A colleague, noticing her hunched posture, asked, "How did it go? Weren't you supposed to go to your boyfriend's birthday dinner tonight?" Shui sighed. "No choice, gotta pick one. My luck sucks. It just had to be tonight." Just then, her phone rang again. It was Xingju. "Honey, when are you getting off work? I'll come pick you up." Her voice was flat. "Xingju, I have an important interview right now. I'm afraid it's going to run late tonight." Hearing her hesitation, he quickly reassured her. "It's okay. Work is more important. I'll just grab dinner with a friend tonight. Sorry, I'm not feeling too well today either, so I might not be able to go to the movies with you after the interview," she added. "It's just a birthday," Xingju replied. "We can celebrate together every year from now on. I'll come pick you up later then. I have to head out now." After he hung up, she muttered to herself, "Life is really not easy." But honestly, she thought, "My boyfriend is so understanding. We haven't been together that long. Not like my boyfriend. No matter how passionate our love was, if I stood him up for any reason, he would definitely be furious. So annoying." Shui instinctively glanced at her colleague. Xingju was too considerate, she thought. He seemed to hang up in a hurry, not even asking where she felt unwell. She patted her cheeks. Why was she scaring herself like this? She must be overthinking it. It was probably just her period making her more sensitive. Stop thinking about it, she chided herself. If I chose work tonight, I have to make sure this interview is flawless. Time to head to the Garnio estate to find Xiang. Outside, the rain was coming down in sheets, the wind howling. She frowned, bracing herself for the downpour. 2 hours. I waited for over 2 hours. Heavens, please let this interview go smoothly. I should have taken a few more painkillers. Just then, footsteps approached. It was Qin Zioming, Shi Yang's brother-in-law and the vice president of the Mingyu Group. He walked over and called out, "Reporter Shui?" Her phone suddenly rang. She quickly answered. Assistant Chin's voice came through, apologetic. Miss, I'm truly sorry, but the party here has ended. Mister, she has other arrangements. Shui cut him off. I understand. Thank you. Dejected, she picked up her bag, wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck, and walked away from the noisy crowd. Stepping outside, she scanned her surroundings. There were many familiar faces, people she'd interviewed before. Maybe Xiang was still here. Maybe there was still a chance. Suddenly, a drunken man stumbled towards her. Well, if it isn't reporter Shui, are you walking alone? Let me give you a ride home. She forced a smile. What a coincidence. He suddenly slung an arm around her shoulder. Come on, you won't find a cab in this downpour. She quickly pulled away. No, thank you. My boyfriend will be here any minute. Just then, a car pulled up. Xiang glanced out the window. That girl over there interviewed me before. She's pretty good. Chun Sheng simply said, she waited for you all night. Not easy, he added. Xiang rolled his eyes at his assistant's words. Shui shivered, burying her face deeper into her scarf. He gave her a brief glance, then turned and walked away. Shui struggled through the rain, her fingers frantically scrolling through information about Xiyang on her phone. There wasn't even a single picture of him online. What kind of secretive game was this? Did anyone actually know what Xiyang looked like? Suddenly, a car screeched to a halt in front of her. Startled, she looked up just as the car door opened. Hearing her name, reporter Shui turned around. Xiyang, his face impassive, stood before her. She froze, then heard him say, I'll give you a ride. Not recognizing him, Shui turned to walk away, thinking, are all these rich kids so casual these days? She hesitated, then declined. No, thank you. As soon as the words left her mouth, a sharp pain stabbed at her abdomen. He noticed, but said nothing. Then he heard her say, my boyfriend is coming soon. He was silent for a moment, then a faint smile touched his lips. He turned and walked away. After what felt like an eternity, Xingju finally arrived. Sorry, honey. It's my first time here. I took a long detour and got lost. She managed a smile. It's okay. It's pouring anyway. Then, looking at him, she asked, Xingju, who celebrated your birthday with you tonight? Did you have fun? His smile faltered at her question. You mean Hawthorne? He quickly recovered. Yeah, you know me so well, always able to guess. Suddenly, she leaned closer, sniffing the air. She hadn't expected such a rugged man to wear cologne. Maybe he has a girlfriend, she thought, suspicion creeping in. He nervously pushed her away. Stop messing around. Let me focus on driving, babe. Unsuspecting, he patted her head. Irritation prickled at her. She smoothed down her hair, staring out the window, wondering why he'd been patting her head so much lately. The rain continued to fall, showing no signs of stopping. Back in her apartment, she lay wearily on her bed. Xingju was probably home by now. She should call him before she went to sleep. Where's my phone? She wondered, rummaging through her bag. She pulled out her iPad and checked the location tracker. She'd been using it before leaving the Garnio estate, so it couldn't have been stolen. It must have fallen out in Xingju's car. After a moment of searching, she located the signal, Jiangqing People's Hospital, First Branch. She frowned, bewildered. Why would it be at the hospital? The rain was still lashing down outside. Shui quickly slipped on her sandals, her mind racing with anxious possibilities. It was almost midnight. Please, let it not be anything serious. She grabbed an umbrella and hurried out into the storm. She spotted the car immediately. It was Xingju's. He was here. It was the middle of the night. A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. What could he possibly be doing at the hospital? Anxiety gnawed at her. Just then, Xingju walked out of the hospital entrance. Relief flooded through her. Xingju, the name died on her lips. Before her, her boyfriend was embracing another woman. She stood in the rain, watching them. Numbly, she murmured, Yuxing Zhao. He pushed the other woman away. Shui, let me explain. While she still clung to some sliver of hope, some desperate belief in an explanation that could make this all okay, he pulled the other woman back into his arms. It felt like a physical blow, a jolt of lightning through her body. His words from earlier echoed in her mind. It's okay. Work is more important. It's just a birthday. I'll just find a friend to fix it and spend a night with them. So considerate, she thought bitterly. So considerate of everyone but me. They hadn't been together long, but he'd always seemed so attentive. Did Shufeng go with you, or does he have a girlfriend? The question, her own earlier suspicion, now felt like a cruel premonition. Don't be silly. Let me give you a ride. Xingzhou, why have you been patting my head so much lately? She hadn't thought much of it before. Now, watching him stroke the other woman's hair. The gesture felt calculated, a condescending dismissal. Everything clicked into place. She stared blankly at the bracelet on her wrist. She remembered the day he gave it to her, declaring himself a man of determination, capable of pursuing her for 3 years. I could spend a lifetime making her happy. Please believe me. Back in the present, he was kissing the other woman. Shui slipped the bracelet off her wrist and placed it on the steering wheel of his car. How ironic, she thought. It was 3 a.m., and she was looking at old photos of them together. The doorbell rang, pulling her from her reverie. She went to answer it. Xingju stood there, head bowed. Shui couldn't say how much time had passed. At the Economic and Financial Weekly office, she knocked on editor Tanya's door. Come in, a voice called. A representative from Mingyu Bank had called. The interview with Shi Yang had been pushed back to next Thursday at 10 p.m. The topic had to be changed as well. Shui quickly sent over a new outline. Tanya looked at her pale face, concern etched on his features. Good heavens, Shui, what happened? Is it because you didn't get to see CEO Shi? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Don't tell me you're still upset about that. She sighed, her voice flat. It's not that. I broke up with my boyfriend last night. He told her that his family wasn't ordinary, that the least of them drove Rolls-Royces with unique, one-of-a-kind license plates in all Jiangxing. Powerful and wealthy. He'd said he had no choice. He wanted to achieve a certain status in 20 years, not be someone who couldn't even afford a house. He'd loved her very much, he'd claimed, and wanted to be with her forever, but now he felt it was best they'd just be friends. Shui spun around, grabbed the wheel of her memory box, and hurled it at him. Who wants to be friends with you? She slapped him hard across the face. I'll be your ancestor. Tanya frowned. So he finally chose the most expensive chest, while you weren't looking, right? She nodded miserably. Tanya's voice sharpened. I told you from the start, he wasn't good enough for you. I treat you like a treasure, Shui. I went to great lengths to bring you over from the newspaper to build a unique brand for you here at Economic and Financial Weekly. With your abilities and qualities, you won't lack for good men. Then what kind of man should I be looking for? She asked, the image of Xingju with the other woman seared into her mind. And then state the reasons and conditions. Tanya replied, find someone who drives a Rolls-Royce. Why not? If she has the capital and is willing to put in the effort, her future will be bright. Driving a Rolls-Royce is no problem. He handed Shui a stack of files. Don't let your emotions affect your work. Adjust your mindset and do a good job at the meeting at the financial center this afternoon. At the financial center, Shui scrolled through her phone, her mind elsewhere. Yu Xingzhou's company is right next door. If it wasn't the only coffee shop nearby, she wouldn't be caught dead here. Just then, Xingzhou and Yushing Zhao arrived. The staff immediately bowed to them. Shui walked out, surprised to see him. He looked equally unsettled to see her. What a coincidence, Shui said, her voice laced with ice. We break up at dawn, and now you're already flaunting your new conquest. He whispered in Yushing Zhao's ear, let's go somewhere else next time, babe. Yushing Zhao pouted. I only like the cocoa here. I feel uncomfortable if I don't have it every day. She's known me for a long time, Shui thought, fury simmering beneath her forced composure. She caught sight of the bracelet on Yushing Zhao's wrist, identical to the one Xingju had given her. The anger intensified. I still remember him patting my head, Shui muttered under her breath, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Looks like this dog hasn't changed his habit of eating shit. Overhearing the insult, Yushing Zhao's hand clenched into a fist. Shui tossed her cup in the trash and walked out, forcing a cheerful air. Turns out some people only like second-hand goods. Outside, she kicked a pillar in frustration, then took a deep breath, reminding herself that it wasn't worth getting worked up over that dog. The couple walked towards their car. Yushing Zhao, still fuming, said, Honey, did you see her? It's one thing to insult me, but why insult you? He chuckled. It's okay, babe. We won't come to this place next time. At least you saw how vicious she is. I can't imagine how you put up with her all these years. Yushing Zhao huffed. I didn't hear a thing. We should stay as far away from people like her as possible in the future. Shui watched as they drove away. Shui replayed the events of the previous day in her mind. Every word he'd said, every gesture he'd made. The same Rolls-Royce, going to the hospital, going on dates, needing air support to steal someone else's boyfriend. No wonder Yu Xingzhou couldn't forget the Rolls-Royce. If you don't make someone pay a heavy price for their actions, they won't see you as someone with determination and character. They'll just think you're a fool, too easy to manipulate. Don't try to salvage 20 years of effort. Didn't you want to latch onto a powerful backer? So what if it's a Rolls Royce? Even if I can't make you pay a heavy price, I'll make you respectfully call me Annie every time you try to flatter me in the future. And in the end, I'll kick your whole family out. She imagined Xingju's father yelling, I will never let this two-timing scoundrel into our family. A smile played on her lips. Who isn't a villain in their own story? She walked over and knocked on a car window. Seeing no movement inside, she knocked again. She glanced around. No one. The car window slid down, revealing the occupant. It was the man who had offered her a ride the other day. Shui stared, stunned. She stepped closer. It was him. She had told him her boyfriend was coming to pick her up. The rich second-generation heir. I rejected. Things have come to this. She took a deep breath and decided to be bold. Hey, she said, feigning helplessness. My phone's dead, and I can't get a taxi. Could I borrow your phone? Time seemed to stop. He initiated conversation with me before, so he must be at least somewhat interested, or maybe he just likes offering rides. She watched him, anxiety prickling her skin as he looked her over. Finally, he spoke. My car doesn't carry women who already have boyfriends. Shui froze, speechless. He put the car in reverse and drove away. The beautiful image from moments before shattered. Shui started typing, a complicated mix of emotions swirling within her. Last night, the man who tried to pick me up, turns out he's the youngest son of the BA family. And today, he rejected me with pure hostility. My car doesn't carry women who already have boyfriends. What a grudge holder, she thought, irritated. Suddenly, she froze, feeling as if she'd been glued to the spot. She forced herself to focus on work. Love may have failed, but my career must thrive. Come on, Shui, she told herself. This interview with Xiyang has to go smoothly. She walked in and was immediately stopped by a staff member. Please register as a guest here. Fill out this form. Shui carefully picked up the pen, then saw the name already written on the form, Su Yuling. Why is she here again? Shui thought. It has to be her. At the company, Shui and Su Yuling had been at odds since day one. Su Yuling always seemed to target her, and there hadn't been a year without some incident of resource theft. This time was clearly no different. The elevator doors opened, and Chun Sheng looked surprised. Reporter Shui? Shui feigned equal surprise. Secretary Chun, it's great to see you here. I have an exclusive interview scheduled with CEO Shi at 3:30 this afternoon. Chun Sheng scratched his head. But aren't you busy? Shui blinked. What? He explained, your colleague already came to the office for the interview this morning. The CEO happened to be free then. Shui clenched her fists. Of course it was Su Yuling stealing my opportunity. She forced a smile. I apologize. There must have been a miscommunication on our end. Chun Sheng said, sorry for the wasted trip. It's nothing, Shui replied politely. The door creaked open, and they both turned to look. Xiang walked in calmly. Shui was taken aback. Where's his entourage? She wondered. Could it be? She thought, trembling slightly. Suddenly, Chun Sheng spoke. COC. Shui froze. COC. That unassuming rich heir is the elusive youngest son of the BA family, and also the financial tycoon. Xiang? You Xingzhou, you really know how to pick them, she thought, a bitter taste rising in her throat. Chun Sheng walked over and whispered something to Xiang, who then glanced in Shui's direction. She forced a smile. Xiang narrowed his eyes, then walked past her. Just walk away, Shui. Pretend nothing happened, she told herself. The thought of Su Yuling, her rival, fueled her resolve. I don't want to, but I need this interview. CEO she called out. He stopped at the sound of her voice. We have an interview scheduled for this afternoon. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. I'm so glad this day has finally arrived. Chun Sheng spoke up. Miss, have you lost your memory? Shui simply smiled gently. So, would now be a convenient time? She stepped closer to Xiang. I only need a little of your time. She looked at him earnestly. All right. Shui glanced up hopefully, but he turned away. It seems I've failed, she sighed, looking down at the floor. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. Xiang stood there, turning slightly. Kulme, he must be a living bodhisattva, Shui thought, relief flooding her. No need to shave my head for this miracle. She silently thanked heaven and earth. As the elevator descended to the second basement level, Shui asked anxiously, CEO, where are we going? Suddenly, Shi Yang's phone rang. The ringtone blared. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The CEO has a call. Be quiet. He didn't answer. Chun Sheng just switched off his own phone and put it in his pocket when another ringtone erupted from it. Buzz, 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 it shrieked. Tell Uncle M. Shun to answer the phone. It was Yushing Zhao. Xiang turned, his expression cold. Chun Sheng, convey my message to her. If she doesn't listen to her family, she's not to appear before me again. Chun Sheng spoke softly. Shui stood nearby, thinking that the situation seemed better than expected. Although Xiang clearly cared for his niece, Yexing Zhao, he was also strict, a man of his word. He held considerable power and authority within the family. Perfect, she thought. I can use his influence to my advantage. Just you wait, Yexing Zhao. The elevator doors opened, and Xiang stepped out first. I have 2 hours, he said. We can talk in the car. All right, Shui replied. He settled into the back seat and glanced sideways. Shui walked forward, smoothing her hair. The light from outside caught her, making her look captivating and elegant. Xiang closed his eyes and rubbed the bridge of his nose. My expressions and movements are on point, Shui thought, pleased with her performance. Suddenly, still facing the window, Xiang asked, Are you cold? Shui feigned surprise. Is he actually asking about my well-being? She thought. How thoughtful, how considerate. Maintain the momentum, Shui. 3/4 face turn, head tilted 15 degrees, face slightly angled towards the light. I'm fine, she replied with a smile, raising a hand to brush her hair back. This is my best angle, she thought smugly. Still without looking at her, Xiang said, Open the window. Shui stood there, dumbfounded. As the window slid down, the wind rushed in, whipping her carefully arranged hair around her face. She tried to maintain her elegant pose, but her arms, now battling the wind, trembled involuntarily. Just because I said I wasn't cold doesn't mean I'm boiling, she thought, irritated. I look this stunning, and CEO, she remains completely unmoved. The autumn wind of Jiangsheng was indeed brisk, cold enough to bring tears to her eyes, but she persevered, forcing a smile. She pulled a hair tie from her bag and quickly secured her hair in a high ponytail. Turning to Xiang, she asked brightly, CEO, may I begin recording? He remained motionless, neither moving nor responding. Still smiling, she continued, I'll record the entire interview, and we can review the final draft together. He sat there, posture unchanged, eyes still closed, offering no reply. She thought, why not install a folding bed in the car? But outwardly, she forced a smile and said, I'll start now. Taking out her tablet, she began, The focus of this interview revolves around the key role of the RMB in Asian currency cooperation and its role in the East Asian region. He also opened his eyes and listened attentively. He suddenly thought of Su Yuling's demeanor while giving her presentation. This interview mainly focused on the RMB's role as a pillar of Asian currency cooperation, and her tone was very similar to Shui's. She continued, First, could you please talk about the preparations a large commercial bank needs to make in promoting the internationalization of the RMB? The content of the proposal was identical. She turned to look at him, wanting to know what he thought of these things. As she turned, she noticed the unusual intensity in his gaze. His face remained expressionless, but he was now staring at her with a puzzling intensity, and she blinked nervously, both shy and apprehensive. She thought, if you don't have any ulterior motives towards me, I'm going to make you explain what that look means today. Firstly, enhance capital strength to better compete in the international market. Banks must ensure they have substantial capital to support the scale and complexity of their cross-border operations. Secondly, upgrade information technology systems to improve service efficiency, minimize risks, and meet international standards. Banks need to upgrade their information technology systems to adapt to complex international financial transactions. She listened, thinking, here we go. He continued. Thirdly, cross-border payment and processing systems, enhancing the efficiency and convenience of cross-border transactions to attract more international clients. Almost 2 hours had passed. She scratched her head, realizing how long it had been. To keep up with his pace, she couldn't relax for a second. Shui turned to look at him, this man who now sat with his eyes closed, seemingly relaxed. The sharp angles of his face held a strange fascination, making it difficult to look away. Then his eyes snapped open. CEO, while his temperament is unpredictable, his looks are truly. Have you finished? He asked, his gaze flicking towards her. Flustered, Shui spun around, unsure where to look. Finished looking, she stammered, the words tumbling out awkwardly. Xiang looked at her, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Shuei's face burned with embarrassment. Damn it, she thought. She was still clutching her tablet, and in a desperate attempt to hide her mortification, she lifted it to cover her face. He said nothing, simply watching her as he adjusted his tie. I shouldn't have been so forward, she mentally berated herself. Chun Sheng, sensing the awkwardness, spoke up. CEO, we've arrived. Xiang opened the door and stepped out. 2 hours are up, he said. Inside the car, Shuei silently thanked Chun Sheng. The man had just saved her life. Then, a wave of panic washed over her. Wait, she realized. Where am I going? You can leave now, she said to the driver, trying to maintain a cool composure she didn't feel. Panic intensified as she looked around. The car was parked in the middle of what appeared to be empty fields, with no one in sight. She stepped out of the car, a cold sweat breaking out. How am I supposed to get back from wherever this rocky wasteland is? She wondered. Ride a horse? She turned instinctively and saw Xiang walking away, already several meters distant. He was actually leaving her here. CEO, she called out, running after him. There's one last question, or we could talk about something else. Go ahead, he replied curtly. It's not really an important rumor, Shuei began, but I saw netizens discussing it, so, do you have a girlfriend? He turned, his gaze sweeping over her. Her dark, glossy hair rippled in the wind. Shuei offered a warm smile. He turned fully to face her now, the difference in their height suddenly pronounced. He was about to speak when a voice called out, Xiang, you just arrived? Shuei glanced over Xiang's shoulder. And this young lady is, the man continued. Shuei's hand flew to her mouth. It's Guan Xiangsheng. She realized, her mind reeling. A highly respected figure in the industry, a leader in the financial world, a textbook example of success, a global leader she'd only ever seen in the media before. Before Xiang could speak, Shuei interjected. Hello, Mr. Guan. I'm Zhang Shuei, a reporter from Economic and Financial Weekly. Ah, Economic and Financial Weekly, Mr. Guan replied. I've read a few of your articles. Well written, insightful, beyond my expectations. He turned back to Xiang, clapping a hand on his shoulder. Xiang, I thought you were coming alone, so I didn't make any special arrangements. I rarely have female guests at my humble abode. That tone, unless, Shuei thought, a thrill of excitement running through her. It sounded as though he was already assuming she was Xiang's girlfriend. Shuei looked around, feigning awe. This place is beautiful. Uncle Guan, you take such good care of it. And these horses are magnificent. She continued, I've never seen anything like them. Uncle Guan chuckled. The truly prized horses are inside. Shuei clasped her hands together, her eyes sparkling. Chinese hero won an award. Wow, is he still here? He is. We'll see him later. Wonderful. All the while, Xiang watched her, his expression unreadable. Shuei turned to meet his gaze, affecting an air of wide-eyed innocence. I'm going to change, he said, turning away. Don't cause any trouble. He didn't tell me to leave, Shuei thought triumphantly. Okay, she replied sweetly. I'll wait right here. He cleared his throat. In the distance, Mr. Guan smiled. You two seem to have known each other for a long time, Uncle Guan remarked. Shuei scratched her head. Oh no, not at all. We actually just met today. I see you're quite fond of horses, Uncle Guan continued, gesturing towards the paddock. How about a riding lesson? Shuei gasped. Oh, would I really be able to? There's some of my wife's old riding clothes in the changing room. You're welcome to borrow them if you don't mind. Not at all, Shuei replied enthusiastically. Come with me. Inside the changing room, Shuei was practically giddy with excitement. I've never ridden a horse before, she thought. This is going to be amazing. She passed by Xiang's changing room, but didn't notice him. He had no idea what she was doing there. Shuei followed Mr. Guan happily, while Xiang watched her in silence. After changing, Shuei examined herself in the mirror. The riding outfit fits perfectly, she thought, just needs a belt. A little extra flair. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. A sly look spread across her face. Xiang had changed. CEO, she called out, I don't know how to tie this belt. Could you teach me? His footsteps turned towards her. Thump, thump, thump. Damn it, she thought. Busted. Click. Xiang stood at the changing room door, his back to her, but his head turned slightly. If you can't tie it, don't ride, he said. Shuei was momentarily speechless. She coughed, tried to regain her composure. Shuei emerged, dusk now settling around them. Her hair was tied back a little lower than before. Based on their earlier conversation, she thought, I think I've got it figured out. Guan Xiangsheng and Xiang aren't relatives. Mr. Guan is just an old friend of Xiang's father, and Xiang is simply accompanying him. Mr. Guan's status in Xiang's eyes is quite obvious. Xiang isn't particularly close to him, but he's very respectful, always showing his best side. This horse is the gentlest, Mr. Guan said. Xiang nodded. Have Xiang teach you how to ride, Mr. Guan continued. He definitely won't refuse me this time, Shui thought, leading the horse toward Xiang. He extended a hand to help her mount, but something in his expression made her apprehensive. What's he going to do? She wondered. Feed me to the horse. Pushing the thought aside, she swung herself into the saddle. Mr. Shi, just teach me a little. Before she could finish, he placed his hands on the horse's back, swung up, and settled in behind her. Shui's face burned. This isn't the kind of teaching I needed. She screamed internally. Why? He asked. I am fine, she stammered, just a little nervous. It's my first time riding. He replied simply. The soft glow of the setting sun bathed the countryside as he slowly guided the horse through the lush green grass. I didn't expect Mr. Shi to be so gentle, Shui thought. They were riding along when they saw Mr. Guan on a white horse ahead. He waved, looking surprisingly cheerful. Then, without warning, Xiang jerked the reins, sending the horse into a gallop. Shui, caught off guard, screamed in alarm. Slow down. Whoa, slow down, she yelled, clinging precariously to the saddle. Ahead of them was a jump. The horse, sensing the obstacle, gathered itself and sailed over it in a breathtaking leap. Then another jump, and another, and another. By the 10th jump, Shui was dizzy and terrified, screaming with each leap, her hand instinctively gripping his. She turned, her face pale, and pleaded with him to slow down. He finally pulled the horse to a stop. Shui lurched forward, saved from tumbling to the ground only by his grip. He was sweating too. Shui slumped against the saddle, her mind racing. Are you feeling guilty now? She thought. Whatever you say, I'm not forgiving you. Still want to learn? He asked suddenly. Shui's mouth felt frozen, as if glued shut. But inside, she was screaming no way. Night had fallen. Downstairs at Shui's apartment building, she sat in the car, exhausted, finally opening her eyes after a long nap. She turned, and Xiang was gone. He left already? She wondered. She walked towards her building, tucking her hair behind her ear, and suddenly realized her earring was missing. She rushed back to the car, but it was too late. The earring was gone. Oh well, she thought. It was only 15 yuan. Let me free. Ouch, she groaned, feeling the ache in her body. Back at the newsroom, a voice called out her name. Shui, aren't you checking your phone? Why aren't you answering my WeChat messages? Something big happened. Nan Nan rushed towards her. Sorry, Nan Nan, she replied. The group chat's been blowing up. I missed your message. Plus, I was drafting something and wasn't paying attention. What's up? Nan Nan leaned in conspiratorially. Did you know Su Yuling also interviewed Xiang yesterday? Yeah, I know, Shui replied curtly. I even glimpsed her draft in the editor-in-chief's office, Nan Nan continued. She completely plagiarized your outline. Every single question was identical. Suddenly it clicked. That's why Xiang had that strange look on his face when I was asking those questions, Shui realized. She knew that the esteemed Mr. Wang wouldn't care about petty rivalries between subordinates. The unwritten rule was whoever was more suitable got the story. But her interview, her draft, why should she be afraid of someone else publishing it? She slammed her hand on the desk and jumped to her feet. I'm going to ask the editor-in-chief, she exclaimed, then immediately recoiled, wincing in pain. Sitting in the restroom, Shui reflected. Last night, she had been so focused on drafting that she hadn't noticed the deepening bruises on her thighs. Who would have thought a simple horse ride could do this much damage? She thought ruefully. Xiang, this is all thanks to you. Want to learn. Now my interview draft is practically ruined, she grumbled. A knock on the restroom door startled her. Su Yuling walked in, fuming. Seriously, isn't this blatant favoritism towards Zhang Shui? She raged into her phone. Ever since Zhang Shui mysteriously joined the finance team, she's been stealing my thunder. I bet Tang is showing her favoritism. She slammed her hand on the sink for emphasis. Shui sat there, her expression a mixture of amusement and disbelief. Yuling continued her rant. And Xiang, it was the same interview, but Zhang Shui got so much more information than I did. Compared to my draft, it's like Xiang was deliberately trying to sabotage me. God knows what kind of spell she cast on him. Shui pushed open the stall door. I didn't cast any spells or use any charm, she said calmly. Yuling, startled, dropped her phone. My skills are just superior, and CEO, she favored me a little more. Shui said, examining herself in the mirror and smoothing her clothes as Su Yuling stood speechless, a cloud of hairspray hanging in the air. Shui turned, a smile playing on her lips. You jumped the gun, didn't you? She thought. Who told you to steal my interview? Who told you to take my draft? Now I'm gonna make you so angry you'll cough up blood. Looks like my draft got chosen after all. She exited the restroom, a spring in her step. No more back pain, no more leg pain. She'd endure any amount of agony to be the Miss Shui sitting next to Nan Nan right now. Nan Nan, beaming, was clearly delighted by Shui's restroom encounter. So the front page is still yours. That's amazing. Even with the answers, she couldn't replicate or surpass you. What happened with Su Yuling afterwards? Shui asked. What else could happen? Nan Nan replied. You know what the editor-in-chief is like. Smooth things over, minimize the drama. He said we're all on the same team, after all, and we have to see each other every day. Her draft's been tossed, and your article is definitely hitting the main news page in Q4. Just let it go. Nan Nan's voice dripped with disgust. Tisk, there's nothing we can do about people like that. Despicable behavior is their ticket to success. Zhang Shui opened the car door and stepped out, then abruptly turned back. Nan Nan teased. Feeling guilty now, huh? What are you doing? Pavement too hot. No, Shui hissed, putting a finger to her lips to silence Nan Nan as Yu Xingzhou approached his car in the distance. Isn't that your boyfriend? Nan Nan asked, puzzled. Shui glared at her. You broke up? Nan Nan asked hesitantly. Shui remained silent. You got dumped. Still silence. If I'm not mistaken, you not only got dumped, but you also got played? Nan Nan pressed. How did you guess so accurately? Shui finally asked, her voice tight. I remember him driving a Honda before. Now it's a Mercedes. I'm a reporter, after all. I should have some observational skills. So that's how he managed to snag a moment. Shui, he thought bitterly. Zhang Shui hung her head, a wave of sadness washing over her. Nan Nan continued, oblivious. Isn't that a Mercedes? Only worth 300,000. Not exactly a luxury car. We could afford one if we really put our minds to it. Seems this rich missy isn't all that capable after all, Shui thought, her mind drifting back to Xiyang. He used both a Bentley and a Rolls-Royce. And this loser was driving that? Looks like he doesn't spoil his niece and let her overspend. She touched her earlobe, where her missing earring should have been. TSK. Seems the man is truly stingy. Sitting in his car, Xiyang gently rubbed the bridge of his nose, where his glasses had left a slight indentation. Suddenly, he remembered Zhang Shui's missing earring. He put his glasses back on and examined it closely. Chen Sheng, turn around. CEO, Zhang Shui, the reporter from Economics and Finance Weekly, is looking for you, he said, handing over his phone. She says she lost something at your place. On the other end of the line, when Shi Yang's name was called, he simply responded with a non-committal Knowing Xiang was listening, Zhang Shui continued, I think I dropped my earring in your car. Have you seen it? It's a pearl earring. She had no idea the earring was currently held between his fingers. Xiang twirled the pearl between his fingers. I haven't seen anything, he said. Zhang Shui's voice became laced with anxiety. Could you please check again? This earring is really important to me. He blinked, a hint of amusement in his eyes. How important? After a few seconds of silence, she continued, It was my grandmother's, which she gave to my mother, and then my mother passed it down to me. It's a family heirloom. Shi Yang's expression shifted to one of skepticism as he listened. The significance of the earring wasn't quite hitting the mark yet. It's my dowry. I have to wear it on my wedding day, Zhang Shui added, her voice catching slightly. Every time I see it, I think of my grandmother. I haven't seen her for a long time. Shi Yang's Adam's apple bobbed slightly, and the corners of his mouth slowly curved into a smile. I see it now, he said. Zhang Shui hesitated, about to suggest a way to retrieve it. She began, but he cut her off. Her dowry is made of plastic. Not wanting to trouble Chun Sheng with delivering the earring, Zhang Shui asked for the address, so she could pick it up herself. But the directions, the address. It was in Beigang, a district filled with towering skyscrapers. Zhang Shui paused, looking up at the imposing buildings. Whose place could this be? She wondered. Surely not Chen Sheng's? Then, with a newfound determination, she started running. Operation Become the Youngest Annie was officially a go. The sprawling villa was completely secluded from the bustling luxury outside. Zhang Shui, wearing a warm smile, reached the door and said, Good evening. She was met with only silence. slightly surprised. She watched as the door silently opened on its own. Stepping inside, Zhang Shui looked around, noting the dim lighting. Her gaze settled on something ahead, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. Hearing a rustling sound from the living room, Zhang Shui turned and immediately spotted Xiang. He was wearing his glasses, focused on a book. A gentle breeze stirred her hair, giving her an air of confidence. Xiang took off his glasses. "Over there," he said, gesturing. Zhang Shui tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and nodded. She hurried towards the indicated location, her mind racing. My earring, Big Bear Xiang is here." She closed the book she was reading. Spotting the earring on the table, Zhang Shui's face lit up with relief. Found it. Success. Success. But then a thought struck her. Perhaps another topic of conversation would be better. Scanning the tabletop, her eyes widened in surprise. She'd spotted something else she liked. Song Yulan's album, My Idol. Zhang Shui propped her chin on her hand, a thoughtful frown creasing her brow. While Song Yulan was incredibly popular, Xiang didn't exactly strike her as the type to enjoy that kind of music. She shook her head, deciding to dismiss the thought. Then, turning swiftly, she asked, "CEO Shi, do you also like Song Yulan?" She poured herself a drink, seemingly oblivious to what she was saying. Zhang Shui beamed like a delighted little bunny. "What a coincidence. I'm a huge fan too. I have every single one of her albums." He slowly turned and walked further into the room. She pressed on. "So, which song of hers do you like the most?" Feeling a twinge of awkwardness, but determined to find common ground, she stammered, "I like." Her gaze fell upon the sofa, where a handbag and a woman's scarf lay casually draped. She instantly assessed them as belonging to a young woman. Her thoughts became a tangled mess, like a ball of yarn unraveling at high speed. Xiang has a girlfriend. Xiang has a girlfriend, and she's here. I messed up. I don't want to face the consequences." Ignoring the fact that he hadn't spoken, merely leaning against the coffee table, she abruptly bowed at a 90-degree angle, her voice overflowing with forced sincerity. "I've retrieved my earring. Thank you for keeping it safe. It's getting late, so I won't disturb you any longer. I'll be going now. I wish you a happy and fulfilling life. Goodbye." Placing his glass on the table, Xiang watched her, a flicker of bewilderment in his eyes. "That's it? It's over?" Zhang Shui felt beads of sweat trickling down her back. Lowering her head in embarrassment, she mumbled, "It's really late now. I shouldn't disturb you. I still have a draft to finish on time. I won't bother you any longer." "I won't bother you any longer," she repeated, turning to leave. Stepping out of Shi Yang's world and back into the darkness outside, the lack of lighting felt oppressive. Just as she was about to leave, she stopped abruptly. "But wait," she thought, "him having a girlfriend is just my own assumption. Am I really going to abandon my entire plan because of this uncertain guess? I need a definitive answer before giving up completely." With renewed determination, Zhang Shui turned and walked back inside. A hesitant voice spoke from behind her. "CEO, Xiang tilted his head toward the sound, his voice soft. "I encountered a slight inconvenience on the way here. Could I borrow something from your girlfriend?" He raised an eyebrow. "Girlfriend?" Zhang Shui blurted out. "Isn't the person in that room your girlfriend?" Xiang glanced towards the sofa, his gaze lingering on the neatly arranged feminine items. He turned back, a sigh escaping his lips, followed by a faint smile that caught her off guard. But he didn't forget to deny it. A triumphant grin spread across Zhang Shui's face. "That's great." Xiang loomed over her, his height and imposing figure casting a shadow. "What's so great about that?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. She hesitated, clearly unable to answer his question. Xiang placed his glass on the table. He stared intently at her, choosing his words carefully to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings. He listened to her entire rambled sentence, then leaned in closer. "Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding?" Xiang moved too quickly, stepping on Zhang Shui's slipper and nearly causing her to fall. "Oh no, he's misunderstood me," she thought, her mind a whirlwind of panic. "How do I explain this? If I say it's a misunderstanding, will he think I'm trying to flirt with him?" He reached out to steady her. Looking at her with a hint of awkwardness, he spoke first. "She's my niece, so there shouldn't be any misunderstanding." His hand now rested on her waist, their faces inches apart. Zhang Shui sprang back from Shi Yang's grasp, nearly sending him tumbling. It's fine," she stammered, her mind suddenly catching up. "Wait, niece? What if I run into the little girl now?" Zhang Shui hopped anxiously, her her agitation causing him to frown in confusion. Right. It will be terrible if your niece misunderstood. With that, she bolted out of his house like a rocket, leaving behind a single parting phrase. I'm going home to get a good night's sleep. Goodbye. Zhang Shui ran off, leaving one of her slippers behind, forcing Shiyang to bend down and pick it up. He then put them away. Just then, a woman emerged from her room, stretching and yawning. I just took a short nap, and it's already dark outside. This was Shiyang's niece on his mother's side, Qin Shiming. Uncle, I thought I heard a woman's voice in here. Was someone here? Uncle, still slightly dazed from sleep, the young woman wondered, does Uncle look like he's slightly disgusted with me? Or am I imagining things? Xiang sat on the sofa, one hand propping up his chin, the other flipping through a book. A shrill voice pierced the quiet. Uncle, are you really going to leave? Qin Shiming felt a pang of unease, wanting to reject the very idea. Our family has enough wealth to last 3 lifetimes. Everyone's working so hard to make money. Someone has to spend it, right? You've never been this dedicated to your studies, and now you're running around every day for a measly internship salary of a few thousand a month. The young woman squeezed out a couple of tears, attempting to sway him. Besides, it's almost the end of the year. Can't this wait until next year? His next words, however, cut shorter, please. Our family doesn't support freeloaders. At the Economic and Financial Times building, Nan picked up a paper from her desk. Zhang Shui asked, "What's up? Is the editor-in-chief asking you to mentor this newbie?" Nan nodded wearily, her fingers still flying across the keyboard. Yep, recruiting season is finally here. Nan offered a bright, encouraging smile. Outstanding looks, impressive resume. Alumni of the same university as the editor-in-chief, excellent grades. Zhang Shui cautioned, be nice to her. Take a good look at her accomplishments and background. Nan's smile faltered as she scanned the document, a cold sweat breaking out. Second place in the university singing competition, president of the campus bell club. Zhang Shui felt a shiver of dread. This is a second-generation ancestor, a big shot I can't afford to offend. I'm already juggling work and my love life. How am I supposed to deal with this living King Yama of the office? Inside the office, everyone was engaged in lively discussions. A voice called out from behind Zhang Shui. Are you Zhang Shui? HR told me to look for you. She turned, offering a soft greeting. Beside her, Nan couldn't help but eavesdrop. Qin Shiyu, a vibrant young woman with a trendy fashion sense, introduced herself confidently. I look forward to your guidance. Zhang Shui steeled herself. This time, she had to nail the interview draft with Xiyang. Her noise-canceling headphones were at the ready. She remembered there were still some things left undone, but first, she needed to assign some tasks to this intern. After a moment of thought, she walked over to Qin Shiyu. Shiyu, these are the recordings from my previous interview. Please organize the content and draft a manuscript. The young woman nodded. Okay, it's just transcription, she thought confidently. What's so hard about that? Opening the file, Qin Shiyu froze, a wave of panic washing over her. Xiang's interview recording from December 10th. Sitting at her desk, the young woman broke out in a cold sweat. No way. It's all in Mandarin, but why can't I understand a single word? This is way too professional. Qin Shiyu swiveled around and called out, Sister Shui, but Zhang Shui remained silent, her fingers clicking relentlessly on the keyboard. Click-clack, click-clack. Thinking she hadn't been heard, the young woman called out again, louder this time. Zhang Shui. Zhang Shui simply picked up her coffee cup and drained it in one gulp. Qin Shiyu considered calling out a third time, but figured it would be futile. Zhang Shui continued to type, her unwavering focus irritating the young woman. No one has ever ignored me like this in my entire life. Later that afternoon, Zhang Shui stretched, removing her headphones and realizing the workday was over. She glanced back to check on the intern, but Qin Shiyu had apparently gone straight home after work. A girl who loves cleanliness, but not work, she thought dryly. The sounds of a whiny voice echoed through an older apartment, making the thought of work even more unbearable. It was, of course, Qin Shiyu complaining to her parents. On her very first day, her supervisor had made her transcribe interview recordings. She was a reporter, not a typist. Sitting beside the whining Qin Shiyu was an elegant woman, Song Yulan, Qin Shiyu's mother and a professional singer. She inquired about the supervisor's name, and Qin Shi replied, yeah, it's Zhang something. Qin Sui-ming, Shiyu's father, quickly caught on. Zhang Shui, he asked. Qin Shi nodded. Oh, Dad, do you know her? Qin Sui-ming replied. I've had dealings with her. She's very capable. You should learn from her. The young woman, not to be outdone, turned her head away. I'm trying to learn, but she won't teach me. He asked, puzzled, why wouldn't she? Qin Shiyu glanced over, her eyes landing on Shiyang, who was happily enjoying his meal on the other side of the room. Then the young woman launched into a dramatic retelling of the day's events, leaving her parents utterly bewildered. Meanwhile, Shiyang hung up the phone with a click, wiped his hands with a towel, and announced, I'm full. Back at the Qin residence, Qin Shiyu's chopsticks trembled in her hand. It seemed she had received the wrong message entirely. She had envisioned herself walking into the economic and financial times and taking charge. The next day at the office, Zhang Shui walked in, looking refreshed. Good morning, someone greeted. Morning, Shui, another chimed in. Good morning, she replied. Nan grabbed a cup of coffee and hurried over, eager to eavesdrop. Anything exciting happen? She asked expectantly. Zhang Shui replied with confidence. The editor-in-chief loved the interview with Xiyang. Now we just have to wait for the final approval. She looked crisp and composed, despite having stayed up all night working on the draft. The notification chime of a new Gmail message rang out. Zhang Shui clicked it open. Rejected. Undeterred, she rolled up her sleeves. I'll revise it right away. I'll make sure he's satisfied. Her sense of professional responsibility shone through. Countless revisions later, the result was still the same. Rejection. Nan stared at the computer screen, bewildered. Why does it keep getting rejected without any feedback? Zhang Shui, her hair now disheveled, sighed. This is the first time I've interviewed him. I didn't realize he was so strict. Just then, Tan Shui arrived and leaned in to look at the screen. Nan suggested that Zhang Shui consider whether she might have offended someone. Zhang Shui shook her head, unable to think of anyone. Tan Shui, eavesdropping on their conversation, chuckled to himself. Could it be that the youngest uncle really... Well, his uncle did pull some strings for him. Su Yuling sauntered over, a smirk playing on her lips. Didn't you say Xiyang loved your draft? Don't tell me you're stuck. She thought to herself, the deadline is approaching. This endless revising is getting her nowhere. She rose from her seat and headed off somewhere, the click-clack of her heels echoing through the office. In Tangyi's office, someone announced, Editor-in-Chief, Zhang Shui is here. Could you give me Shi Yang's phone number? Zhang Shui asked. I'll ask him myself. That afternoon, in Beigang, a luxury car glided smoothly towards its destination. As Shi Yang sat with his chin resting on his hand, someone announced, Mr. Shi, we've arrived. Zhang Shui was already waiting at the gate. Shi Yang adjusted his glasses, his gaze settling on the young woman before him. She shivered slightly in the cold wind, turning to look out at the street as a breeze swept past. It turned out she had caught him just as he was leaving work. As Shi Yang stepped out of the car, she called out, Mr. Shi. He paused. What is it? Zhang Shui felt a wave of awkwardness. Shoot, I haven't figured out how to ask him yet. Do you have a problem with me? Would that be too direct? In the end, she opted for, I had a feeling you might want to see me, so I came. Xiang simply nodded. Oh, now she was truly regretting her impulsive words. He raised an eyebrow. Zhang Shui, why would you think I wanted to see you? Panicked, she told herself, even if I can't stand straight, I have to hold my ground. The truth was, she forced herself to get to the point. Otherwise, what's the meaning of rejecting my draft 3 times? You wouldn't even answer my calls. Xiang replied impassively, not satisfied. She pressed him, not satisfied? Not satisfied with what? Stepping closer, she pleaded, tell me what's wrong, and I'll revise it. Isn't that okay? Can I fix it? Xiang simply turned and walked away. Watching his retreating figure, her heart pounded. Is he really just going to leave? The deadline is fast approaching. This is my hard work, my layout. I can't. Zhang Shui lowered her head, the words catching in her throat. Unless you actually did want to see me. Xiang stopped, then a quiet chuckle escaped his lips. Internally, she cringed. What am I even saying? I'm completely losing it. He reached the door and turned back to her. Then come in, he said, leaving her momentarily stunned. He slipped his hands into his pockets. Come on. Inside Shi Yang's villa, Zhang Shui sat perched on the edge of a living room chair, shivering slightly. He must have guessed why I made such a fuss. But why did he still let me in? The more she thought about it, the more embarrassed she became. She covered her flushed cheeks with her hand, indulging in a fleeting fantasy. Unless he's captivated by my charm. I am quite captivating, after all. Shi Yang's fingers tapped lightly on the chair. Sit here, he instructed, and revise it. Startled, she straightened up like an obedient student, a flicker of disappointment crossing her features. So he just brought me in to revise the draft. Zhang Shui diligently typed away, correcting the errors in her design. As she worked, she couldn't resist stealing glances at him. Xiang stood at the kitchen counter, pouring water from a liquor bottle. Want some water? He asked. Yes, she replied quickly. Pointing at the glass he'd poured, she added, I want what you're having. He glanced at her, a hint of amusement in his eyes. This is Baijiu. Zhang Shui didn't miss a beat. I know, that's what I want. Unable to resist her boldness, Xiang poured her a glass. Just then, the phone on the living room table rang. As Xiang settled onto the sofa to answer the call, a voice chirped from the other end. Hey, uncle, I'll bring you some alcohol, okay? I bought it at an auction. It's really good stuff, the kind you can drink 1,000 glasses of and still stand. He waited patiently for his niece to finish before gently refusing. No, thank you. His gaze drifted towards Zhang Shui, who was savoring the aroma of the baijiu. Sensing his eyes on her, she looked up. Their eyes met. He then calmly rejected his niece's offer. It's not convenient for you to bring it over now. Qin Shiyu's voice took on a disgruntled tone. Why not? Are you hiding a woman there? Poor girl, Zhang Shui thought, to have such a heartless uncle. After hanging up, Zhang Shui approached Xiyang and addressed him softly. Mr. Shi. She handed him her laptop. Please review the revised version, she said, unhesitatingly. Xiyang, seemingly channeling his earlier interaction with his niece, calmly criticized her work for being too verbose. Feeling a fresh wave of embarrassment, Zhang Shui turned away to make further revisions. I'll fix it right away, she mumbled. Meanwhile, Qin Shiyu's words echoed in Shi Yang's mind. Hiding a woman there? Her? Outside, darkness had fallen, and the grand house was bathed in moonlight. Silence descended upon the house as the man and woman worked, their backs to each other. The conversation between Zhang Shui and Xiyang had ended inconclusively. Too short. Didn't pass. She sighed. Is there anything else wrong with it? She asked. He pointed out another error without hesitation. This part, I said it this way, not that way. Unsure of his intentions, she probed. So what you mean is... He remained cryptic. Figure out yourself. Or do you need me to write it for you? After several more rounds of revisions, Zhang Shui felt confident that this time it should be perfect. Finally, the word she'd been longing to hear. All right, she basked in relief, almost giddy. Really? Zhang Shui closed her laptop, needing to hear it again. Really? There's nothing else that needs adjusting. Spoiled by the rare praise, she eagerly sought to further revise her work, wanting to demonstrate her dedication. I can keep editing, she offered. I'll do whatever you want me to do to make it perfect. Listening to the girl's nervous chatter, the corner of Shi Yang's mouth lifted almost imperceptibly. He'd already let Zhang Shui off the hook. That was enough. Still unsure, she pressed him. Are you absolutely sure it's okay now? He sidestepped her question, his own a curveball. You've been at another man's house for this long. Doesn't your boyfriend mind? Flustered, she corrected him, the words tumbling out in a rush. I don't have a boyfriend. We broke up the day I first met you. He took a drag from his cigarette, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, and asked coolly, So you're completely clueless about what Xiyang is trying to say? Looking at Shi Yang's impassive face, she racked her brain. What does he mean? Zhang Shui swallowed nervously, unable to decipher his expression. Impulsively, she reached out and grasped his sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. Then, can I pursue you? Despite Shi Yang's rejection, Qin Shiyu walked over, a glass of wine in hand, a cheerful smile on her face. Suddenly, she stopped, her eyes widening as she recognized a familiar figure. Then, noticing Qin Shiyu, Zhang Shui greeted her. Qin Shiyu, what a coincidence, you're here too. Qin Shiyu replied politely, I'm here to see someone. As Zhang Shui turned to leave, she offered a friendly reminder. It might rain tonight. Remember to bring an umbrella. Qin Shiyu watched her disappear, puzzled by her presence. Qin Shiyu entered the house, pouting playfully. Uncle, I brought you some wine. Xiang was washing the glass Zhang Shui had used, the rim still bearing a faint trace of lipstick. Qin Shiyu's eyes lit up at the sight, the scent of a juicy story in the air. A lover indeed, Xiang sighed, exasperated by his breathless niece's sudden appearance. Didn't I tell you not to come? Qin Shiyu grinned. I wanted to bring you something good myself. Are you living alone? Understanding the implication in her question, his eyes flickered, a silent warning to stop her teasing. Leave after you put the wine down. Chastened, Qin Shiyu quickly retreated, nodding in agreement. Okay. Recalling her encounter with Zhang Shui downstairs, she thought this reaction might be genuine unless Zhang Shui was discovered by a neighbor. As soon as Zhang Shui got home, she collapsed onto her bed, sinking into its comforting embrace. Replaying the evening's events in her mind, she muttered to herself, completely insane. He'd answered her question, asking if she would give up if he couldn't reciprocate. Zhang Shui had hesitated, then replied, I won't. Xiang turned away, his expression hidden. Then why ask? He countered. Immediately, she retorted, isn't that just showing you some respect, following proper procedure? At her words, Shi Yang's gaze darkened. He pressed a button on the remote, opening the door, a clear signal for her to leave. As the door opened, she straightened up, a cheerful facade masking her inner turmoil, accepting the dismissal. Before leaving, she couldn't resist adding, I'll message you on WeChat later. I'm a great conversationalist. Burying her face in her bed, she thought he didn't reply. Maybe that means he silently agreed. A ringing phone jolted her from a reverie. Zhang Shui snatched it up, a flicker of hope that it was him accepting her friend request. It was a message from a friend. Shui, I heard you and you Xingzhou broke up. The message was from Tan Naxin, her close friend and college roommate. A wave of irritation washed over her. How did you know? Tan Naxin replied swiftly. I saw his moments. He went on a trip with another woman. Mentally replaying the photo she'd seen, Tan Naxin privately thought he's out of his mind. Outside, thunder rumbled, a prelude to the impending downpour. Suddenly, a bright smile spread across Zhang Shui's face. Let them be. I have things to do now. She returned to her chat with Xiang and sent a message. Xiang, I'm home. Mr. Shi, are you resting? Closing her eyes, she placed her phone beside her, waiting. Xiang, I'm waiting for your reply. Her phone screen lit up. She snatched it up, her heart leaping. Confusion quickly followed. The message contained only 2 characters. TD. What did TD mean? Was it even a real reply? Outside, thunder cracked, a deafening roar. Zhang Shui jolted awake, her heart pounding. She remembered the 2 cryptic characters Shi Yang had sent. TD. Calming herself, she sank back onto the bed. Was it a dream? Would Xiang really send such a nonsensical message? Staring at her phone, Zhang Shui's spirits plummeted. No further response all night. It was worse than a rejected advertisement at the office. At work, whispers circulated. Hey, have you heard anything? Colleagues murmured amongst themselves. Zhang Shui's draft had been rejected by Ming Yu multiple times. Her writing is usually top-notch. It's never been rejected before. Another colleague chimed in, curious. Did she offend someone? Qin Shiyu, within earshot, absorbed every rumor. Even if he wanted to vent his anger, he shouldn't torment such a delicate beauty like this. Could he? Suddenly, Zhang Shui's voice startled her. Qin Shiyu, come here for a second. Today, Zhang Shui's hair was pulled back, her face etched with exhaustion. The editor-in-chief wants you to attend a meeting with me. She looked Qin Shiyu up and down, a flicker of concern in her eyes. Zhang Shui definitely wasn't the delicate beauty her colleagues imagined. Recalling the sudden summons, Qin Shiyu asked, what kind of meeting is it? A bright smile spread across Zhang Shui's face. The Mingyu Bank press conference. It's about Xiang, the one whose recording I asked you to transcribe the other day. Qin Shiyu froze, her spirit seemingly fleeing her body in terror at the mention of her youngest uncle. What? She exclaimed in disbelief. At the Cedar Group building, bathed in warm sunlight, countless people bustled within. The 2 girls presented a stark contrast. Zhang Shui, radiating confidence, practically vibrated with energy, while Qin Shiyu trailed behind her nervously. So many people, Zhang Shui exclaimed, pulling Qin Shiyu along with her. Alarmed, Qin Shiyu protested, Sister, wait, aren't there seats in the back? Why are we going to front? Zhang Shui's true motive was to get a better view of the men present, but she offered a convenient excuse. It's hard to hear from the back. Resigned, Qin Shiyu had no choice but to sit in the front row with Zhang Shui. Xiang and the leadership team filed into the conference hall. The announcement followed. Distinguished guests, the press conference will now begin. We invite our representative to speak. Xiang, impeccably dressed as always, took his place. Qin Shiyu kept her head down, avoiding his gaze, while Zhang Shui's eyes shone. He placed his hands on the table and sat down, his face an impassive mask. Before Zhang Shui could fully absorb the sight of him, he glanced down. Catching his eye, she offered a dazzling smile. Xiang quickly looked away. Exasperated, Zhang Shui Mao this. She whipped out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. A barrage of messages flooded Shi Yang's inbox. Mr. Shi, you look incredibly handsome today. This isn't a press conference. It's a showcase of your charisma. The notification chime pinged. He cautiously retrieved his phone from his pocket, his eyes widening at the incoming messages. I can't speak right now, but internally I'm screaming your name. The most handsome man here. Xiang shot Zhang Shui a warning glance, which she met with amusement. Undeterred, she continued typing. I'd rather climb Mount Everest in stilettos on one foot and a shoe full of rocks on the other than see you frown like that. Annoying him filled her with a perverse sense of satisfaction. Who told him to ignore my messages? Finally, she sent an emoji, punctuating her point. Feeling a cold stare, she looked up. Xiang was watching her intently. Flustered, she quickly dropped her phone. Zhang Shui recoiled, shrinking back in her seat and adopting the posture of an obedient student. She busied herself with her laptop, pretending to work as the conference began. Qin Shiyu, meanwhile, kept her head resolutely down. Mustering all her courage, Qin Shiyu finally whispered, Sister Shui, I need some fresh air. I think I'll step out for a moment. Zhang Shui responded with the usual questions. What's wrong? Not used to these kinds of events. Qin Shiyu stammered, Mr. Shi, he keeps looking at me. It's unnerving. She couldn't help but glance up at Xiang herself. He sat ramrod straight, his attention seemingly fixed on the speaker. Yet, despite his focused demeanor, Xiang swiftly registered Qin Shiyu's gaze. Zhang Shui, noticing the exchange, offered a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Qin Shiyu, she said casually. He's looking at me. During a break in the proceedings, a man approached. You're Zhang Shui, the Economic and Financial Times reporter, right? The young man, with salt and pepper hair, extended a hand. I'm Xiebo Ming, a reporter from Jiangxing Daily. I've read your articles and have been meaning to meet you. Zhang Shui responded politely. Nice to meet you too. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. I interned in the finance department when I first graduated. My team leader was Tang. She's my editor-in-chief now, Zhang Shui added. Xiebo Ming grinned. So, we're practically colleagues then, aren't we? Xiebo Ming seized the opportunity. Let's exchange WeChat contacts. It'll be easier to share news in the future. Zhang Shui readily agreed. Another contact, another source, she thought. She pulled out her phone to scan his QR code. Let me scan yours. As she did, her gaze locked with Shi Yang's across the room. The connection was unmistakable. Xiang watched, his expression unreadable, as Zhang Shui and Xie Boming chatted. Zhang Shui felt a distinct shift in his gaze. It was different this time. Xiang observed the two of them, their heads bent together in animated discussion. Xie Boming, oblivious to the scrutiny, urged, scan my code. Okay, Zhang Shui replied. Xiang abruptly pushed back his chair and stood, calling out Zhang Shui's name. Both Zhang Shui and Xie Boming turned their heads. Come here, Xiang commanded. His stride was purposeful, almost predatory. Xie Boming nudged Zhang Shui awkwardly, indicating that she was being summoned. Watching his discomfort, a sudden realization dawned on her. Could it be? A thrilling thought sparked in her mind. Xiang is jealous. Zhang Shui practically skipped over to him, the words echoing in her head. He's jealous. Did you need something? She asked, trying to contain her excitement. Xiang stood backlit, his voice commanding. Sit. She perched on a nearby chair, barely able to contain herself. Just admit it, you're jealous. Xiang's shoes stopped directly in front of her. He looked down, his gaze sharp. Where's the reporter who came with you? The question caught Zhang Shui off guard. A question mark bloomed in her mind. Xiang was asking about Qin Shiyu. Understanding flooded Zhang Shui. He hadn't called her over because he was jealous. He wanted to know about Qin Shiyu. A wave of disappointment washed over her. His earlier gaze had been directed at Qin Shiyu, and now he was using her as a messenger. They don't even really know each other. Am I just a tool? Fine then. I'll play along. She pulled out her phone and called Qin Shiyu. Hello, came the hesitant reply. Qin Shiyu, where are you? Zhang Shui asked. I'm at the coffee shop outside. Qin Shiyu answered casually. I won't leave, but it was too stuffy inside, so I came out for some air. Hanging up, Zhang Shui turned back to Xiang. Mr. Shi, she left. Where did she go? He pressed. Zhang Shui fabricated an excuse. She wasn't feeling well and went home. Xiang frowned, dissatisfied. What specifically was wrong? Her patience was wearing thin. Do I need to report back to you on what I had for lunch as well? She snapped. Finally, she decided to lay her cards on the table. She had a weakness for CEOs. When faced with a figure like him, her chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. Suddenly, and quite unexpectedly, she blurted out, "It's not like that." Zhang Shui cupped her chin in her hands, a dazzling smile spreading across her face, radiating charm. "I see his brilliance shining, and I'm completely captivated." Zhang Shui, exhilarated by her own boldness, continued to pour out her feelings. A soft clearing of Shi Yang's throat cut her off mid-sentence. A flush of embarrassment crept up her neck. She felt like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. He hadn't taken the bait. Thankfully, Shi Yang's assistant stepped in, breaking the tense silence. "Mr. Shi, the press conference is resuming." He hesitated, glancing between his boss and the beautiful reporter. Shi Yang, without another word, straightened his suit jacket and turned to leave. Before he disappeared through the door, he glanced back, a look Zhang Shui misinterpreted as concern for Qin Shiyu. Walking alone after work, Zhang Shui sighed. Qin Shiyu hadn't returned. Another storyline bites the dust, she thought dejectedly. She drifted into her own thoughts, replaying the events of the day. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught her eye. Instinctively, she turned to look. Xiang was standing with Qin Shiyu. Zhang Shui froze, speechless. Qin Shiyu looked genuinely happy in his presence, a sight that only deepened Zhang Shui's suspicions. It all made sense now. A montage of imagined scenarios of the two of them together flickered through her mind. So, from the beginning, it wasn't me he was interested in. Xiang and Qin Shiyu's words echoed in her ears. "Can I pursue you? I feel like Mr. Shi is looking at me. I despise being in this situation," she thought bitterly. "The two of you are already a world apart." Xiang, too, noticed Zhang Shui across the street. She looked as if she might cry. This time, "I don't have a right to be upset," she told herself. She chanted a silent mantra, out of sight, out of mind. Zhang Shui turned and continued walking, alone. He must be gone by now, she thought, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. Glancing back, she saw Xiang leaning against a car door, adjusting his cuff. His expression was neutral, as if he were waiting for someone. He didn't even acknowledge her gaze. Confusion gnawed at her. Why is he still there? Despite the pang of regret, she resolutely turned and walked away. This isn't how the script was supposed to go. Zhang Shui felt a lump forming in her throat. The more she thought about Shi Yang's behavior, the more her heart ached. What does he mean? Not rejecting me, yet standing there with another woman. She fought back, tears, her cheeks burning. He said he didn't have a girlfriend. Why is he being so ambiguous? Lost in her thoughts, Zhang Shui wandered aimlessly, eventually finding herself in a dead end. Is he playing with me? At this point, who's the fool? She stopped, staring at the brick wall in front of her. How'd I even end up here? She'd lost not only her pride, but her dignity too. He must be watching me turn around, amused. As she stood there, lost in her misery, footsteps approached from behind. "What are you doing here?" Zhang Shui asked, her voice flat. She kept her head down, her expression a mixture of defiance and a silent plea for mercy. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable, a question in his eyes. Shi Yang's presence radiated power, a force that compelled her to stay. Yet, Zhang Shui offered no resistance. "Goodbye," she said quietly. "Take care. I won't see you out." As the words left her lips, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Her ride had been canceled for failing to reach the designated pickup point on time. Another embarrassing incident, and she would lose face completely. How humiliating. Suddenly, she felt a gentle tug on her arm. Shi Yang's hand rested lightly on her sleeve. Startled, she turned instinctively. Shi Yang extended his hand. "Come on," he said. "I'll take you home." Zhang Shui quickly acquiesced, following him to the car. A mantra of self-preservation echoed in her mind. I must endure humiliation and bear hardship. If I can't even tolerate small matters, how can I achieve great things? During the phone call, Xiang couldn't help but observe the young woman beside him. Her rosy cheeks and sharp features were undeniably striking. Xiang shifted his phone from one hand to the other, primarily to get a better look at Zhang Shui. The silence in the car became increasingly awkward. Suddenly, she clenched her hand, as if steeling herself for something. The resolve lasted only a few seconds before she pressed her hand to her forehead, a wave of pain so intense it brought tears to her eyes. The person on the other end of the call, not having heard her, called out to confirm he was still there. Mr. Shi, he said, concluding his conversation. All right, we'll do it that way. He couldn't resist glancing over at the passenger seat. Zhang Shui had fallen asleep at some point during the call. Her long lashes fluttered against her cheeks. Instinctively, Xiang silenced his phone, not wanting to disturb her. His attention was now fully focused on her. Suddenly, shifting in her sleep, Zhang Shui slumped slightly, her body tilting towards the console. Xiang quickly reached out, gently supporting her head and carefully adjusting her position so she was sitting upright again. His fingers brushed against the softness of her cheek. He paused, the urge to lean and almost overwhelming. Zhang Shui woke with a start, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. She had no idea how long she had been asleep. Smoothing her hair, she glanced at the figure beside her. Mr. Shi, she murmured softly, registering that he was still there. Xiang's eyes remained closed, but he seemed to have heard her, a faint sound escaping his lips. Hesitantly, Zhang Shui leaned closer. Have you been waiting for me long? She asked. He still didn't open his eyes. Not long, he replied. Looking at his imposing figure, Zhang Shui felt a wave of awkwardness wash over her, unsure of what to say to break the silence. Despite his obvious interest in her, Xiang feigned impatience. Are you planning to stay here forever? He asked. Why aren't you getting out? Zhang Shui, picking up on his cue, scratched her head and gave an embarrassed laugh. Of course not, she said. His gaze sharpened. I'm busy, he reminded her. Go on. Understanding dawned, and she quickly scrambled out of the car. Professional to the point of being heartbreaking, she thought. Before closing the door, she turned back. Thank you, she said. Thank you for taking me home. Goodbye. With a final click, the car door shut behind her. He lifted his hand, the ghost of the feeling of her cheek lingering on his fingertips. His secretary's voice broke through his reverie. Mr. Shi, it's rush hour now, so the journey will take longer than expected. You'll likely be late tonight. Despite the intrusion, the words couldn't fully dislodge Zhang Shui from his thoughts. Even though she had left the car, Zhang Shui lingered, watching as he drove away. I kept thinking in the car, she mused, and now I fully understand. He wasn't just going in the same direction. He's clearly busy, but he still went out of his way to take me home. As the car disappeared from view, a rosy flush returned to her cheeks. Zhang Shui started walking, his actions replaying in her mind. Suddenly, she jumped with excitement. Oh, he must have been trying to cheer me up. She realized. I bet he noticed I was upset when I saw him with Qin Shiyu. From the moment she left the car to her arrival home, and even into her evening routine, the thought continued to swirl in Zhang Shui's mind. Yet something still fell off. One step closer to Qin Shiyu, she muttered to herself, growing increasingly agitated, and the next step back to comfort me. All right, Xiang, you really are a two-faced player. One step closer to Qin Shiyu, and the next back to comfort me. She repeated the phrase, her annoyance growing. All right, Xiang, she muttered to herself. You really are a two-faced player. Lying in bed, she pouted. Even though I have feelings for him, it doesn't mean I'm flirting with another man at the same time. I'm completely devoted to him. Forget it, she thought. It's too complicated. Her eyelids grew heavy with exhaustion. Zhang Shui tried to console herself. This is for the best. You and your niece have similar tastes, so I can carry out my plan without any burden. After all, I don't really like him. I shouldn't endure this to the point of being inexplicably trapped. Wake up, Zhang Shui, she told herself firmly. Regardless of what happened yesterday, a new day had dawned. She still had to go to work. Today's meeting went surprisingly well. Before we begin the meeting, Kinnick announced, let me share some good news. Sales of our latest weekly issue have doubled, and the readership of our digital edition has also skyrocketed. Zhang Shui's interview was particularly well received, sparking significant discussion within the industry. Despite the praise, Zhang Shui felt a hollowness inside. Then, Ten's voice rang out. Come on, everyone. Let's give a round of applause for our star contributor. Finally, amidst the enthusiastic clapping, a genuine smile touched her lips. She regained her composure. As the meeting concluded and everyone returned to their workstations, Qin Shiyu felt a nagging unease. She glanced across the room at Zhang Shui. I'm worried about Shui, she thought. Am I imagining things? It was a celebratory meeting, but her mood seemed off. Is it because of the interview, or is something else bothering her? Shi Yuling approached Zhang Shui slowly. So, Qin Shiyu is still on your mind? She said. Yes, I did report you, but I didn't expect you to defend your family so fiercely. Wasn't that a bit much? Yuling pulled up a chair and sat down. Shui, what's wrong today? You should be happy about such an achievement. We're having a party tonight to celebrate. In contrast to Yuling's excitement, Zhang Shui remained indifferent. The expression in Yuling's eyes shifted, her voice turning pointedly sarcastic. Oh, or is it that you just broke up with your boyfriend and you're in a bad mood? Zhang Shui still didn't react to her taunts. Yuling abruptly stood up, angered by Zhang Shui's continued silence. Zhang Shui, she exclaimed, I'm talking to you. Can you show some respect? Can Yu, standing nearby, covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a laugh. Serve her right, she muttered. Zhang Shui finally removed her earbuds. Yuling, noticing the slight hesitation, pressed on. Shui, were you talking to me? A sweet smile masked Zhang Shui's awkward explanation. I've been wearing noise-canceling headphones, she said. The volume was a bit high, and I was so focused I didn't hear you. I am sorry. Qin Shiyu turned sharply, recalling the headphones. Qin Shiyu remembered trying to call Zhang Shui earlier without getting a response. Now she understood the headphones. She thought back to the press conference, to Zhang Shui's enthusiasm, pulling her around and introducing her people. Embarrassment washed over Qin Shiyu. She wasn't someone who treated others coldly. Did this mean she had misjudged Zhang Shui? The more she thought about it, the worse she felt. I've never taken advantage of anyone. She thought miserably. I can't admit that my misunderstanding caused her to go out of her way for me. She closed her eyes, regretting her behavior. Oh God, she thought, can this be salvaged? That evening, back in her apartment, Zhang Shui immersed herself in cleaning. The rustle of tidying filled the room. Finally, she sighed, feeling much better. Her contentment was short-lived. She remembered the two tickets to the Song Yuan concert tomorrow night. She wasn't sure who to go with. Just then, her phone rang. Shui, the voice said. Zhang Shui froze. Wait a minute, she thought, opening Yang's contact information. He still hadn't replied to her long message. A daring thought crossed her mind. Maybe. Moments later, Zhang Shui had narrowed down the possibilities on WeChat to Xiyang, Lucky, and Xiyang. It seems a little silly, she thought, but this WeChat ID belongs to Xiyang. Seeing the friend request accepted, she was ecstatic. He had added her. Her slender fingers flew across the screen, navigating to his moments. Only 3 days' worth of posts were visible. She scrolled for a bit, finding nothing particularly interesting. Still, Zhang Shui seemed pleased, confirming that this was indeed his account. She initiated the conversation. Finally, she typed, I've been waiting for you to add me on WeChat. The first message went unanswered, so she sent another. Are you going to bed? Luckily, this time he replied, it's still early. Clutching her phone, Zhang Shui beamed as she typed. Perfect timing. I just saw this and was wondering who to go with. She sent a message with 2 pictures of Song Yuan concert tickets, followed by a question mark. Knowing how to seize the opportunity, she asked, are you free tomorrow night? Watching the typing indicator appear and disappear, she added playfully, giving you another chance. You can't refuse me. The message sent successfully. Okay. She wanted to jump for joy, replying instantly. Then let's go together tomorrow night. His response was incredibly nonchalant. Sure. Oh my God, what should I wear tomorrow? She thought giddily. Let's see if I can win your heart. Zhang Shui, like a schoolgirl, excitedly began preparing for her date. The next morning, Zhang Shui's face was meticulously made up, her features sharp, her outfit elegant. She stood gracefully by the roadside, waiting for Xiyang to pick her up. To occupy the time, she began plotting. According to the rules of romantic dramas, a cute hairband was the perfect touch. She squinted, picturing it, even creating a blissful scenario in her mind. I'll find a way to make him wear it later, she mused. Wouldn't that be adorable? This would be a piece of cake. A sleek sports car sped towards her from the distance. As expected, the car screeched to a halt in front of her. It must be him, she thought, such a flashy car, and that distinctive license plate. Zhang Shui adjusted her posture, ready to act cute, and called out. Her voice cut off abruptly. A pair of long legs emerged from the sports car. Qin Shiyu removed her sunglasses. Utterly bewildered, Zhang Shui stammered, Qin Shiyu? Though caught off guard, she managed to wave to the newly arrived Qin Shiyu. Perhaps Shiyu was unlucky, but her optimistic personality made up for it. While a funny coincidence, she didn't think much of it. After all, it was just Song Yuan's concert. Qin Shiyu, confused by Zhang Shui's reaction, asked, Isn't this what we planned? Didn't you ask me to come? You arranged to meet me, but Zhang Shui's face went blank. I clearly intended to meet Xiyang. A thought flashed through her mind, sending a chill down her spine. Wait a minute. She silently recalled their initials. XY, Xiyang. XY, Shiryu. Blissfully unaware of Zhang Shui's near meltdown, Qin Shiyu asked, "What's wrong, sister?" The painful realization of her mistake hit Zhang Shui hard. The fan meeting was bustling, the room filled with the shrill screams of excited fans. Lost in the throng, the two girls stood, one embarrassed, the other uneasy. Zhang Shui sighed dejectedly, pulling out her phone to check her messages. A conversation with an illiterate who couldn't type. A string of sent messages with no replies. Couldn't sleep well last night because I was anxious. I couldn't fall asleep, but if you could chat with me, I would have slept well. Good morning. The certainty grew. She had gotten it wrong. Xiyang, you jerk, she thought, never answering calls, ignoring messages. Her eyes drooped, filled with sadness. A torrent of negative thoughts flooded her mind. Why does he always make me chase after him? She wondered. What's with his hot and cold behavior? Can't a grown man be honest? On stage, the music began, and Song Yuan's clear voice echoed through the venue. I once wanted to end it all because my heart has been empty for so long, and even crying can't fill it. The lyrics seemed to mirror all of Zhang Shui's feelings. Warm tears began to flow, and Zhang Shui's sobs gradually became audible, yet they were warm sobs, because I'm still yearning for something. She couldn't hold back any longer, deciding to cry her heart out, wallowing in self-pity. I'm such a pitiful kitten, she whimpered. Why? She protested, refusing to accept this harsh reality. Her hands waved passionately, oblivious to the many confused stares around her. Qin Shiyu, noticing her distress, asked, "What's wrong? Are you in a bad mood?" It was as if she was just waiting for someone to show concern. Turning, seemingly unable to contain her emotions any longer, she nodded in confirmation. Zhang Shui haltingly shared her fabricated woes. I just went through a breakup not long ago. Qin Shiyu offered a sympathetic ear. Have you heard? Zhang Shui continued, diving into her story. He pursued me for a long time, and everyone thought he'd never leave me. But not long after we got together, he did a complete 180 and cheated. Qin Shiyu looked utterly shocked by this information. Her emotional outburst continued. Damn it, all because that homewrecker had money, not to mention her elusive uncle. Qin Shiyu, with a thoughtful expression, watched her dear sister Shui perform, feigning disgust and vehemently condemning the imagined infidelity with indignant tones. Qin Shiyu gripped her light stick, making it click and glow. Seething with mock rage, she suggested that such a person deserved to have their limbs chopped off. Zhang Shui wholeheartedly agreed. Yes, she exclaimed. Suddenly, Zhang Shui's laughter grew more sinister. She turned dark, revealing her scheming nature that made her sister unable to swallow her anger. Her sister couldn't let them live peacefully, especially since her uncle had warned her to care for her from the very beginning. She jumped up, joining in the cheers of the fans with renewed determination. She was resolved to win his heart and become the youngest aunt. Qin Shiyu eagerly spurred her on. That's right. She has to become that girl's youngest aunt. She has to make it happen, cause chaos in their family. It wouldn't be a true Chinese drama otherwise. Shui, you can do it. Her anger burning, she pumped her fist in agreement. Returning exhausted from giving her all, Zhang Shui left with the aches and pains of an elderly person. Neck pain, shoulder pain, hip pain. It's best not to overdo things in life, she sighed. I'm already halfway to my grave. According to Zhang Shui, Qin Shiyu had something to attend to and left early, so she had to take a taxi home by herself. She opened a ride-hailing app on her phone, trying to book a 7-seater. Friend Express 88 in line. Uncle 4 in line. Sorry, exceeding estimated time. Taxi hailing. Special emergency vehicle hailing. Panic set in. What? 88 people in line right now. Let me try hailing a car somewhere less crowded. Suddenly, she yelped. Ouch, that hurts. Zhang Shui's heel had snapped clean off. Inspecting the damage, she muttered, looks like these shoes are ready for retirement. Just then, a car sped past, then reversed towards her. Zhang Shui noticed it. Oh, a taxi's coming. The car stopped in the middle of the road. Zhang Shui stared, dumbfounded, as the window slowly rolled down. Through the window, she saw Shi Yang's handsome face. What is Shi Yang doing here? She wondered, stunned. As Shi Yang started the car, she noticed another vehicle approaching. The car stopped in front of her. Shu Yin inside, his face devoid of any expression. He didn't even glance her way. The scene was so unexpected, so beyond anticipation, that Zhang Shui was completely caught off guard. Xiang casually tilted his head slightly. Glancing out the window, Zhang Shui swallowed hard, Qin Shiyu's encouraging words echoing in her mind. Shui, go for it. Become the youngest ant. Before he could speak, she quickly played the victim. I've twisted my ankle, she lied, feigning distress. Inwardly, she was a whirlwind of Vong Line, trying to compose herself as she hobbled forward. Leaning closer to the window, Zhang Shui spoke softly, "This is all because of you." She then propped her chin on one hand, relishing every word. "You have to take responsibility for me." The words she'd uttered made her cringe, even hearing them repeated. A blush crept up her cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and a strange thrill. He turned to look at her face, then quickly returned his gaze forward. Xiang simply drove away, leaving Zhang Shui staring after him in disbelief. She limped forward with difficulty, lamenting internally, "No, it was just a slight twist, but am I really crippled? Is this leg made of paper?" Suddenly, a young man blocked her path, scratching his head. "Do you need any help?" he asked. Zhang Shui politely declined. "No, thank you. My boyfriend is coming to pick me up." Disappointed that the beautiful woman was already taken, the young man walked away. Meanwhile, Zhang Shui's inner monologue continued its interrogation. "Xiang, do you have no heart?" Her cheeks puffed out in a dramatic pout. Xiang, 15 degrees of myopia, heartless, cold, and unfeeling. She grew more indignant with each word. "Am I not beautiful? Am I not adorable? Yet he won't even spare me a second glance." She stamped her foot in frustration. Do his eyes only avoid beautiful women? Why not donate them to a hot pot restaurant? Stepping on her injured foot only worsened the pain, the insult adding to the injury. Ouch! Zhang Shui groaned in agony. Truly, no matter how many times she was reincarnated, she was still this foolish. As she stood there by the roadside lamenting, Shu Yin had already turned his car around. His expression was pensive, saying nothing as he took a quick glance to assess the situation. Unaware of the presence behind her, Zhang Shui continued to grumble. Stupid, hoping to be the brightest flower of spring. Expressing all her feelings seemed to improve her mood. Letting out a long sigh, she realized the truth too late to justify herself. "I think I can get in the car first, and then explain. What do you think?" she muttered, as if to an invisible audience. Zhang Shui sat quietly in Shi Yang's car, not uttering a single word during the journey. His slender hands remained focused on the steering wheel, while unease filled Shi Yang's heart. "Sebelas yang es patience waretin." It's been 10 minutes. Haven't you figured it out yet? Don't rush. There's still 90 minutes left before the exam, Zhang Shui replied, maintaining her composure despite the interrogation. Glancing worriedly at the man beside her, Zhang Shui saw no other option but to feign illness. "My leg hurts so much. Don't resist," he warned. Zhang Shui immediately obeyed. The car gradually accelerated, and under the night sky, Xiang took Zhang Shui to the Jiang Chung Family Hospital. She silently assessed. "This is the Shi family's rehabilitation hospital." He reached over and opened her door. She stared at him. "Get out," Xiang demanded coldly. Her body trembled, and she quickly turned. Preparing to get out, Zhang Shui, unsure whether the pain was real or imagined, began to moan. "Xiang, my leg hurts so much, I can't stand up." Despite feeling quite embarrassed, she steadfastly explained, "Look, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have to walk such a long way with a sprained ankle, and my shoes are ruined too." Then, she abruptly turned around, pretending to be blind. "I can't see anymore. I've donated myself to a hot pot restaurant, digging my own grave," she dramatically declared. "Don't hold a grudge," Zhang Shui pleaded, using a clever scheme to hook the man's attention. Successfully capturing Shi Yang's attention, all her thoughts were written across her face. She extended her hand, calling his name again. "Xiang," she said, smiling brightly, requesting assistance. "Carry me on your back," she demanded, taking a deep breath. He lowered his face, a warning in his tone. "Stop messing around, Shui." Quick to retort, she insisted, "I'm not messing around." Suddenly, he scooped her up into his arms. Startled, she instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. Flustered, Zhang Shui attempted a protest. "Xiang, I asked you to carry me on your back, not like this." Nestled in Shi Yang's embrace, Zhang Shui felt a wave of panic. So close, the faint scent of sandalwood enveloped her. She had assumed this blockhead had no heart, yet his heartbeat pounded against her with surprising force. Things had gone this far. This once-in-a-lifetime opportunity couldn't be missed. Zhang Shui leaned closer to Xiang, her large eyes fluttering. She lowered her voice to a whisper, just loud enough for the two of them to hear. Xiang, has your ex-girlfriend ever told you from this angle? You're handsome? She finished, drawing out each word, a secret pride swelling within her. And deadly, she stifled a giggle. At her words, Xiang stumbled, his loss of balance momentarily mirroring her own. Xiang steadied Zhang Shui in a manner that couldn't have been more awkward. A hint of amusement colored his voice as he responded to her teasing. Then has your ex-boyfriend ever told you? Mimicking her deliberate cadence. You're heavy. At this playful retort, Zhang Shui could only puff out her cheeks, silently cursing, no way. Then why don't you become my first ex-boyfriend? She challenged. Inside the hospital, Zhang Shui continued to moan dramatically, exaggerating her pain. The doctor, a mixture of concern and bewilderment, spoke gently. Miss, I'm being very gentle. Is it really that painful? Clearly playing to her audience of one, Zhang Shui continued her performance, glancing at Xiang between pained cries. The Pacific Ocean of a man remained unmoved, lost in his own thoughts. Zhang Shui, now Zhang Xiang in her mind, doubled her efforts, fully committed to her theatrical display. Such dedicated acting. Was he truly just a block of wood? Then Xiang received a phone call and coolly excused himself. Well, that didn't work, she thought, deflated. Turning to the doctor, she confessed, Doctor, just do what you need to do. I can actually tolerate the pain. The doctor couldn't help but chuckle. So it was all an act? It turned out her injury wasn't serious after all. The doctor advised Zhang Shui to ice the injury for 48 hours and then switch to heat. If the pain persisted, she should use some medicine to promote blood circulation and dissipate blood stasis. She shouldn't massage the area or move it too much. If she had difficulty, she could ask her boyfriend for help. Zhang Shui demurred. It's actually not that painful. Even the doctor sighed sympathetically. It's not a big deal, but your boyfriend, although handsome, is too cold. Xiang had seemingly gone out to answer the phone with an air of indifference. But in reality, he had done so to spare Zhang Shui the effort of keeping up her charade while she recovered. He stood outside, listening to the women's humorous conversation within. Hearing the doctor's comment, Zhang Shui defended him. Doctor, don't talk nonsense. He's not heartless. The doctor laughed. Miss, you're very protective of your man. Xiang silently preened. Whose wife is so talented, I wonder? His self-satisfaction was short-lived. Zhang Shui's next words made him freeze. Fundamentally, he's a man without a heart. The mention of his fundamental nature triggered a thought. But where has she gone for so long? Don't tell me she's left for good. The doctor offered a reassuring guess. Maybe she wouldn't pay the bill. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Sufficiently rested, Zhang Shui immediately resumed her performance. Xiang, she groaned pathetically. Her act faltered as she realized it wasn't Xiang who entered, but a cold, sterile wheelchair that replaced the hoped-for warmth of his embrace. Xiang, the infuriatingly handsome devil, stood beside his four-wheeled maiden. For added flair, he leaned against it with one leg crossed over the other, one hand in his pocket, the other raised to observe the rapidly spinning hands of his watch, the picture of nonchalant grace. He turned his captivating blue eyes towards the doorway, greeting Zhang Shui. Zhang Shui, wheeled in by a nurse, offered a graceful wave to the indifferent man. This scene felt strangely familiar, as if they had met like this somewhere before. One standing, one seated, their gazes locked, a silent acknowledgement passing between them even without looking. Zhang Shui made one last effort to commit to her role, extending a hand and feigning helplessness. But my legs still can't move. Then she bent down, touching her supposedly injured ankle. See, she thought triumphantly, he can't refuse me. After this little game, our relationship will definitely take a leap forward. But heaven never takes away without giving back, nor does it give back without taking away. A mouse, scurrying across the floor, dared to challenge her performance. The unexpected appearance caught her completely off guard, eliciting a shriek of surprise. What the hell is that? She launched herself at Xiang, clinging to him like a koala. The mouse. It's huge. Fortunately, Xiang, still playing along, reached out and caught her. The wheelchair, not wanting to be left out of the drama, seemed to sense its own awkward presence and silently glided away from the entangled pair. Xiang said nothing, merely gazing at her supposedly injured leg, his expression unreadable. This is so bad, even 10 legs wouldn't save you now. Zhang Shui's internal monologue spiraled. Damn it, I think I should get in the car first and explain later. What do you think? The car continued to speed through the city streets, illuminated by the streetlights. The voice on the phone continued. Xiang, I remember you know by Lin, right? A friend of mine has a movie and wants to invite her to star in it, but they're still hesitant about the pay. Zhang Shui listened from the passenger seat. Bai Lin, that up-and-coming actress? The voice on the phone continued. Are your connections with her good? Xiang, focused on driving, responded, I think her acting is average. She looked at him, intrigued. He continued, or the person sitting in my car, her acting is pretty good too. Startled, she turned her head to look at him. Later, at Zhang Shui's apartment, she leaned against her table, relaxing and wondering why something always seemed to happen every day. Mistaking a limp, standing too close to Xiang, she thought, scratching her head in frustration. Today's situation feels like it's been glued together with superglue. If that's the case, I can't give up halfway. I have to follow through with the plan. As she spoke to herself, she picked up her phone to send a text, almost forgetting to reimburse him for her medical expenses. The moment she hit send, Shi Yang's reply came back instantly. She jumped in surprise. Oh my God, he replied to me. Am I really on Earth? Shi Yang was excessively straightforward. She had tentatively asked, is this Shi Yang? He replied, if not. She then inquired, how much was the medicine today? I'll pay you back. His reply was curt, no need. She suddenly remembered something. All right, that's his hospital. She typed into the search bar, Yan'an Rehabilitation Hospital prices. Now I don't owe him anything. His reply made her heart race. Does he really not need it? She texted, you're making me feel awkward, followed by a sparkling-eyed emoji. He replied, consider it today's acting fee. She gave a wry smile and texted back, my night shift salary is only a little over 2,000. But what do you want? If you're asking. She rested her chin in her hand, thinking, I want to have dinner with you tomorrow. Meanwhile, at a certain villa, everyone was partying. Song Yuanlan was there too. She remarked, the celebration is almost over, and you're just arriving. She glanced at Shi Yang, who was sitting on the sofa, looking at his phone. He responded. Something came up. He was reading Zhang Shui's messages, 2 words catching his attention. Qin Yoming walked over and said, Xiang, tomorrow night is Uncle Zhang's family gathering. Remember to bring Xiao Shui. Shiyu, overhearing from behind, froze. A child ran over, crying, I don't want to go anywhere. Meow, meow, meow. Xiang, still focused on his phone, typed a reply to Zhang Shui, giving her no room for refusal. Shiyu stood behind him, her gaze filled with affection. In the message, Zhang Shui had written, let's have dinner together tomorrow. He replied, I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. Then, he took a sip of his drink. Zhang Shui, overjoyed, replied, okay. A new day arrived. Zhang Shui kept changing her clothes, from green to yellow, then to black, still unable to decide on the perfect outfit. What on earth should I wear? She fretted, pacing back and forth. This is practically our first date. Overwhelmed by the momentous occasion, she sent a text to Xiang. Sabalasyang, Sabalasyang, Sabalasyang. Which one looks better? Accompanied by a picture of her overflowing wardrobe. His reply was swift and simple. Red. Zhang Shui looked around her apartment, bewildered. Where do I even have anything red? I never wear red. Annoyed, she thought, is he messing with me? Or is he colorblind? While rummaging through her clothes, her eyes landed on a beige sweater with a small horse riding logo. Suddenly it clicked. Right, I wore that red riding outfit a few days ago when we went horseback riding. This is you begging me to go straight to the mall. And so at the mall, Zhang Shui was trying on a sleek, red, off-the-shoulder dress, the fabric clinging to her figure. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed from outside the fitting room. What do you think of this dress? Another voice, equally familiar, replied, it's all right. Could that voice really be? Zhang Shui cautiously peeked her head out of the fitting room. Sure enough, it was that couple again. The same pair who had interrupted her previous shopping trip. Her phone buzzed with a text. Zhang Shui, what are you doing this weekend? I'm so bored, Nin messaged. Zhang Shui quickly typed back. Don't even talk about it. I went shopping and ran into the most annoying couple. Nan's reply was immediate, laced with indignation. Seriously? Where are you? Got Kim. Zhang Shui responded, referring to the store's name. I'm close by, be there soon. Torn between confronting them and avoiding an unpleasant encounter, Zhang Shui decided to wait it out in the fitting room. 5 minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. She sat on the small stool, trying to maintain her composure. From outside, the voices continued to drift in. This dress is too plain. It looks like something a middle-aged woman would wear. But on a beautiful woman, It's completely different. After a while, exhausted by the ordeal, Zhang Shui found herself nodding off. The voices droned on. No, I can't wear these pants. They make my legs look too thick. Nonsense, you're thin. 15 minutes crawl by. Zhang Shui, her hair now disheveled, fumed inside the cramped fitting room. This dress is too tight and the color is too dark. Beautiful people look good in anything. Finally, she'd had enough. Throwing open the curtain, she strode out, her frustration boiling over. This is ridiculous. It's not like I'm the one having an affair. Why should I be hiding? The sales assistant, oblivious to the internal drama, continued her attempts to be helpful. Red looks so elegant on you. This dress would be perfect for the New Year celebrations. Zhang Shui paused, considering the sales assistant's words. Is the style a bit too simple? There's not much to it design-wise. Meanwhile, Kim Yuozi, the woman from the annoying couple, looked stunning in a similar red dress, her figure flawless. She commanded attention, even captivating the sales assistants. But as Zhang Shui stepped fully into the light, her own elegance and striking beauty became undeniable. Kim Yuozi and her companion, Yu Xingzhou, both turned to stare, momentarily speechless. Even the sales assistants seemed captivated. Ignoring Kim Yuozi completely, the sales assistant rushed over to Zhang Shui, showering her with compliments. This dress is made for you. Your fair skin makes it look incredibly elegant. Honestly, this shade of red seems designed specifically for someone with your complexion. I think you look even better in it than the models in our magazine. You came here today for a reason. This is our last one. Frankly, if you try on any other dresses now, I'll be upset. This one is just too perfect. Zhang Shui, feeling a surge of confidence, pulled out her phone. Not bad. Let me take a picture. Meanwhile, in a conference room, Xiang sat listening to the discussions swirling around him. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. He glanced down and opened a message from Zhang Shui. It was a picture of her in the red dress, accompanied by a question. Does it look good? I want a two-word answer. Xiang took off his glasses, rubbing his temples, a gesture that silenced the shareholders in the conference room. They held their breath, afraid to disturb him. President Xiang, is there a problem? One finally ventured. He sighed, replying, please continue. But he didn't forget to respond to Zhang Shui's message. It's all right. Zhang Shui, upon receiving his less than enthusiastic reply, was exasperated. Kim Xiang, would it kill you to say something nice? Just then, a blonde woman entered the store. Excuse me, she asked. Could I try on that red dress? The sales assistant politely replied, I'm sorry, there are only two left, and she trailed off, gesturing toward Zhang Shui and Kim Yuozi, both already wearing the coveted dress. Kim Yuozi lifted her chin, attempting a nonchalant air. Not very pretty, is it? She muttered, loud enough for the nearby sales assistant to hear. But Yu Xingzhou, engrossed in his own thoughts, didn't catch her words. He just stood there, his wide eyes fixed on Zhang Shui. Infuriated, Kim Yuozi snapped. Yu Xingzhou, Zhang Shui, however, remained unfazed by their bickering. Her mind raced, strategizing. Leaving now would feel like admitting defeat, like she was intimidated by this obnoxious couple. She decided to feign indifference, browsing the racks as if nothing was amiss. Just as she found a dress that caught her eye, Kim Yuozi materialized beside her. We have such similar taste, don't we? She remarked sweetly. Are you seriously trying to provoke me? Zhang Shui fumed inwardly. Fine, two can play at this game. Pink, the color of office chic. Zhang Shui radiated an overwhelming charisma, effortlessly dominating the scene. Black, the epitome of striking sophistication. The ensemble she chose made her an instant winner, while Kim Yuozi, struggling to coordinate even the same color, looked like she was dressed in recycled refuse. Tacky and tasteless, a sad attempt at youthful workplace fashion. Zhang Shui exuded the air of a CEO, while Kim Yuozi resembled a country bumpkin. The sales assistant, sensing a lucrative opportunity, chirped, So, shall I wrap these up for both of you? Kim Yuozi, realizing she was outmatched, clung to Yu Xingzhou's arm, ostentatiously flaunting his willingness to foot the bill. Darling, she cooed, I love them all. Buy them all for me, okay? Yu Xingzhou, clearly reluctant to part with his cash, responded irritably, Hurry up. We have dinner reservations. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Zhang Shui, have you chosen yet? It was none other than Qin Shiyu. Don't worry, I'll pick for you, she declared, stepping forward with an air of authority. The sales assistant, practically giddy with the prospect of a massive sale, inquired. Should I wrap everything up then? Qin Shiyu, however, wasn't about to back down so easily. With a subtle flourish, she placed a black card on the counter. Her voice, low and steady, left no room for misinterpretation. Everything that suits my sister's style, except for those few display pieces. Everyone within earshot gaped, particularly Zhang Shui. She whispered, stunned. Qin Shiyu winked mischievously. Don't worry, she confided. This is a spare card. He doesn't care about these little expenses. Zhang Shui felt a bead of sweat trickle down her forehead. Good heavens, is this what it's like to be rich? Qin Shiyu leaned against the counter, a playful smirk on her face. Thank you, she said to the stunned sales assistant. I really appreciate you quickly picking out all the ugly ones. Kim Yuozi, her face contorted in rage, sputtered. Damn it. Yu Xingzhou, desperately trying to placate her, muttered. Come on, those display pieces weren't that nice anyway. Thank goodness my wallet is safe, he thought with relief. Suddenly, a shrill voice echoed through the store. It was Kim Yuozi, unleashing her fury on Yu Xingzhou. Not pretty, he says. I saw your eyes practically glued to her. The sales assistant handed Zhang Shui the receipt. Here you are, she said. The rest of the items will be delivered to your home. Zhang Shui stretched languidly, feeling utterly relaxed. Qin Shiyu, walking beside her, asked, How do you feel? Happy, sufficiently vented. Zhang Shui hesitated for a moment before replying, Thank you, Shiyu. But Zhang Shui scratched her head, remembering her plans for the evening. Qin Shiyu, seemingly more eager than Zhang Shui herself, pressed, Is it with my uncle? How are things going? The two exchanged knowing smiles. As she walked, Zhang Shui thought, I'll return the clothes in a few days. I could never be with Qin Shiyu's uncle. That would just be too weird. A luxurious car waited downstairs. Yang Shou sat inside, resting. Hearing a noise, he looked up. Did you bring her to this location? He asked. Zhang Shui, resplendent in her stunning red dress, addressed the staff member. Please wait a moment, she said. No problem, he replied cheerfully. That's what we're here for. The lower part of her dress was designed with an architectural flair reminiscent of a cathedral, yet with a modern touch. Sebelas yang wajed transfixet. Then he stepped out of the car and called out, Zhang Shui, startling both Yang Shou and the staff member. She turned towards him, her makeup impeccable. Xiang, she breathed. He looked exceptionally elegant in a black suit, extending his hand towards her. She stepped into the car.